guys, welcome to another episode of Hope Unfiltered. I am Ran and we have Pastor J across there.
Great to always be here and a special one today.
It is. You excited?
A little bit nervous, because
you shouldn't be because we have no icebreaker. So you should be in your zone.
That's true.
I know you're probably disappointed that you can't come out.
You disappointed.
I see it.
All right, okay. But it's gonna be fun today.
Yes. Yeah, we're gonna be talking about the importance of fathers and also some of the issues that may have come about from just people who have different stories. We all come from different walks of life and have different experiences in terms of navigating those relationships, and we're gonna hopefully unpack that.
Honestly, I said it's fun, but I know it's a deep topic and something that's really heavy. But why I think it's fun is because we need to have these conversations.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I mean, that's one of the things that we always say here on this podcast. It's a safe space. And so that's our intention, to create these safe spaces.
I don't feel safe here, by the way.
How come?
I'm blinking for danger here. But no, it's true. It's really a safe space for you guys. Thank you all so much for the comments, the feedback, and so.
Yeah.
But today is a special podcast.
It's the first time we're actually having a panel, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
It's something we've been talking about for quite some time. And
ever since the start, we've always played with the idea.
So really excited that we get to unpack this episode with some lovely guests who will be introducing themselves, starting from my right over there.
Let's talk.
Well, my name is Dwayne, and I'm happy to be a part of one of the best podcasts in Trinidad. Yes, right.
The MP do his job, but
speaking of which, he's not here today.
So we might have
he was on his very bad behavior. So
him not being here means no icebreaker.
No icebreaker.
All right, I think we could work something out then in the future.
Okay.
My name is Shaquille. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniela. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, nice to have you.
Hi everyone, I'm Tioka. Happy to join you.
Hi guys, my name is Kyron. I'm a fan of the podcast and I'm glad to be here.
Hey guys, my name is Kijana and thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Right, we're really excited to have you guys as well. One of the things we're gonna start right off the bat. We don't really.
Do you want to introduce the topic?
Yeah.
What are you doing? You're doing questions one time?
Yeah, let's go into the questions a little bit.
You just want to go straight
how else are we supposed to do this? We're going to the deep end.
I get, you see, look at, like, I really need the icebreaker, boy. But yeah, let's go.
I did say Father's Day is literally in a couple of days.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great space to talk about good fathers. Some of us have good experiences. Some of us would have had challenging experiences with our dads growing up for different reasons, right? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Yeah. And hopefully open up this space so even persons that may be having struggles and stuff like that can,
One thing I want to say is thanks to all of you guys for coming on to share your part of the story, because like we would capture some of the things, but a topic like this, we do need a wide range of experiences and so to work with. So we're really grateful you guys took the time to be with us today.
Yeah, so one of the first things we're going to talk about is just the role of a father in terms of how a father shapes our identity and how we see ourselves. I would have grown up without a dad. My dad passed away when I was 8 years old. And so that did impact me and affect me at various stages in my life. I know you guys have unique experiences, so I'm not sure who feels like they could speak into that space, but
in terms of whether the presence of your dad or the absence,
either
right,
would have impacted
how it has shaped you,
your identity, how you saw yourself.
I would say having a father in my life has been very important, because if he wasn't in my life, I could safely say I might have not have been here today. Because growing up in church, I did fall into the world, and he's one of the main reasons I didn't went fully.
You didn't completely lose yourself.
I didn't completely lose myself in the world, because it's easy to when you have the friends and the fame and, you know what I mean, the gas to go. Especially when you had a father who was in the service, like mine, and in church too.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
I was denied a lot. You could look at it both ways. I was denied or he was trying to protect me.
you from
But
it.
in that way, I was looking at it like I was denied. So when I get the chance to
That's how you
venture
went
out,
in.
yeah, it was too bagay. But in saying so, he had an important part to play because whether it be, he would always correct me. And when I find myself in trouble, he was there still,
Right.
regardless if
Whether you agree
he
or
like it or not, yeah, he was
yeah.
there. So having a
That's-
father, for me, was very important.
Important.
Yeah.
Love it.
I think I share these same sentiments with you and losing your dad, because I did lose my dad, but I didn't grow up with him for most of my life.
Yeah.
So that kind of shaped how I saw my like identity in terms of affirmation. I didn't have like that father figure
Yeah.
affirming me. So that did affect like my identity. And even you ask yourself questions like, am I good enough? Because you just didn't have that presence. So yeah.
And I do think it depends on the way that your father wasn't present. It could be for various amounts of reasons, through debt, abandonment, abuse, debt, various reasons. I think it does impact people in different ways depending on what that situation looked like. Anybody from on this side?
Yeah, I think it's only as an adult that I really understood the value of my father's presence. You know, growing up, you want to be in the game, you want to be, you know, cool with your friends. And I remember every school term, I would tell my father, like, I want this Jones and I want this bag and I want this. And what really struck me when I started to work doing an internship about 17 years old around there, and I got my first paycheck, and I told my father, I said, I'm gonna buy a spin bike, yeah, because I want to keep fit. And he was like, a spin bike? He was like, that's a lot. And then I told him, well, this is my salary. And he was like, wow, okay, that's my salary too. And it drew me back because it was the first time I understood his sacrifice and how much he prioritized me. Yeah. And just went that extra mile to ensure that throughout life that I had every single thing I ever wanted, not just materially, but emotionally and so forth. But he was always there. And this is me now. On my first picture, I'm thinking, go and buy a bike. And this is a man who would have used that same funds to do all of these different things to me. But as I grew older and now into adulthood, I would say that he is literally my best friend, my confidant, my fixer. But more importantly, that work ethic, and I told that story because that work ethic where he worked and he did all that he had to do to see me through life, I didn't realize until I took stock of myself maybe a few years ago that that's my work ethic too. So while I don't have the same trials and all those things that he had, because he provided and protected me for this, the fact that I would do 2, 3, 4 things at once, and my ambition and my drive, not saying it didn't come from a mommy, but it came from seeing him do all of these things to ensure that I have. So when I think of myself now to be a parent, if it's the one thing that I know that I want to be in this season is a present parent. Yeah. Because his presence is really what made me know that I could do anything, because he was there, standing behind me, to the side of me, everywhere that I was going, anything I wanted to do, he was there.
Yeah, I think that is such a profound thing that you said there just now in terms of like just being present. And before I lost my dad, that's my dad. He was there literally all the time. Like he was very busy with work, but we never felt that he was not around because he prioritized us in that way. And so it's so important, like you mentioned as well, like your mom was there, like she did a lot. But there's something very distinct about having a father.
Safety.
Yes.
Guide.
Yes.
Focus and a strength that keeps you going.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You guys have anything?
Well, for me, I would start off by saying that my dad had a really difficult life. He started working when he was 13 years old. And I know that he did his best to provide for us, driving taxi, working day and night, that kind of stuff. When I say provide for us, I'm his first child. My parents divorced when I was about 8 years old, so he really did his best to provide financially and whatnot. I think the most significant thing that my dad did for me is that when I was around 15 years old, he realized how things was going with me. Um, Mentally and emotionally, I wasn't stable. And then, of course, aside from that, sitting down the place, quote unquote. And yeah, even as like a 14-year-old and whatnot.
Yeah.
And he prayed for me. And it was an interesting type of conversation. He prayed for me for 5 months and then started to talk to him about coming to church. And then we'll have arguments about that. I'll be like, well, I have no clothes. And he'd be like, well, wear that. And I'll be like, well, it's a short pants. And, that kind of stuff. So it wasn't like clear cut and perfect, and it wasn't ideal. But through it, he prayed, worked it out, and invited me he kept the invitations going. And then because he invited me to something that wasn't formal, it was like a lime or an event. That's when I came and gave my heart to the Lord for the first time. And that is one of the most significant things that he did for me, and a very significant impact on my life as well.
Pastor Jay, how important is like just having a father in terms of that spiritual guidance? Because that's kind of similar to Dwayne's story.
Well, even before I just listening to these stories here, and it's so contrasted. Like Danny, you would connect with Tuka and stuff, and then Kai. Every time he kept speaking, I kept hearing like the persistence of his father.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that goes with spirituality, because I know that's what you're asking. For me, yes, of course, as a pastor, but I think their spirituality is the thing that needs to be led in any home by father and mother. But especially for a father, there was a study years ago, pre-COVID, so it could have changed.
Yeah.
And it said that when a child comes to Christ, right? Like, let's say a young person gets saved, the chance of the household getting saved is like just under 50% or so. If a mother gets saved, it's I think between 60 and 70%. If the father gets saved, it is 95+% for a family to be saved.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks volumes, because the fathers are to lead in the spirituality. So Kai has a great example and a great experience that that's how his father led him. Dwayne, you spoke a lot about that as well. And I think that is real critical and crucial, not just for us here, but just on society and the whole, to have men lead really well in terms of the spiritual aspect.
Yeah, that, I mean, I thought that was just really profound in terms of just the spiritual aspect of what you guys would have shared. The next question really is how and if at all did you guys at any point in time, this is specifically for those that didn't really have dad's presence or may have had seasons where their father was not present.
But wait, I want to correct that though.
Okay, go ahead.
You could have a father in the house but not present.
Yeah.
So I think, it's, if you've ever had even a season where your father was present in your life also.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Were there specific ways that you guys would have tried to fill that gap? Because let's be real, the absence of a father leaves a void. It does. What are some of the ways that you guys would have tried to fill the gap, that void?
I think for me, one of the ways I try to fill the gap is I'm a straight A student, right? Like I'm the A student.
Wait. Says the C. Says the C student.
See, I'm glad to call you my daughter, right?
So I am one of those overachievers. So what I did to fill that gap was just to
kind of overcompensate.
Yeah, try to overcompensate, whether that was through school or just always being the best or trying to be my best. But that was also kind of harmful, because when I failed or when I encountered any kind of challenge or failure, I tend to crash in those moments.
A different kind of low you hit.
Right, because I was building my identity on that overcompensating in different things. Yeah. So that was one of the ways I was trying to fill the gap.
We love yourself, if no you're Eve.
I want to chime into that because I relate to that a lot. My dad died when I was between 2 and 3, so I missed certain parts of that season. But I grew up with a stepfather, right? And he was very strict when it comes to like certain things, right? And that was instilled in me. So they were not present as well. Both my stepfather and my mom, because they were always working and stuff like that. And to do the same thing, compensate so they can like be proud of me and whatever that may be. Just overachieve, like try to do great things or whatever. So I got caught up a lot in art, and I used to put my emotions and stuff in that. So and I used to make stuff with my hands. So when I started to show that and stuff, he would compliment, and show me like, "Yo, that's pretty good." He was
So
also
like
into music.
validation.
Yeah, a lot of validation within that, right? He was into music, so I try to learn some stuff with music,
To connect with him and all.
connect with him and stuff like that when it comes to certain things and whatnot, But I had to, despite him being strict and stuff, I owe a lot of my academic success to him because of him like teaching me and wanting me to really succeed and stuff. And after a certain period, then my mom picked up that mantle and stuff like that. So just to honor him in that way,
One thing I think I would share is that, my dad wasn't emotionally available, and of course he wasn't present in the household. He wasn't somebody that I believe I could have spoken to whenever I started opening up to him about critical issues in my life. To me, you get upset, especially because I grew up as a more artistic or sensitive or emotional person. So when I used to go through this type of things, talking to him was a very bad experience. How did I compensate with that? Usually through friends. Like even from a young age, I would talk to friends about the things I would go through, right? And I don't think that worked out well. I think emotionally, after some time, it's just very difficult. Like I wish we could have had some conversations related to men, related to some of the things I was going through from puberty afterward. I wish we could have talked.
Yeah.
I wish we could talk. And that's been very difficult for me. And when I was younger, I had a temper.
Okay.
So
Is that how you would have the reaction to the lack of the relationship? Do you think that was just like a kind of reaction to your dad not being present?
So because this is Unfiltered, I'll probably share something. When I was 11, I started having suicidal thoughts, somewhere around there and a little bit older. So that is one thing I would like to talk to my parents about.
Okay.
And I think that was not a topic I could have brought up. So that instability, if you could repeat that last part of the question.
If the anger was as a result of, you not being able to express yourself freely.
His personality is very dominant and direct. So to me, he was always angry. That's my perspective. And I either had one or two reactions to that. I would either absorb it and keep quiet, but there's certain circumstances where I would explode.
Okay.
And I never wanted to get to the point, especially when I became a Christian, of exploding.
Okay.
So I would avoid the conversation. And if I could have it, I would. And usually what I ended up doing in terms of absorbing it, I chose to become more sensitive and emotional to it rather than lashing out and becoming too aggressive, all right? Because aggression is an easy slope for me, an easier and a slippery slope for me, whether it be... So, I've never gotten into any serious issues like in school and whatnot with others and whatnot. But I know myself, and I know the times where I might have destroyed my own personal property and things at least. So I'm talking teen.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Now, because I know I'm very, I'm like him on the inside. I could be very direct and maybe loud and that kind of stuff. So I'm still working through some things.
Yeah.
Still trying to find ways, to find that stuff.
I just want to say something. He brought up as a teen struggling with suicide and stuff. You said that you couldn't go to them. I just want to say for any of our young listeners, please go to your parents, no matter what you feel. Also, I've looked at the increase in young suicides and the devastation that it leaves behind. So please, I don't care what you think, speak to someone.
Yeah, in his case, he said his parents would not. I don't know, maybe there were some reasons that,
No,
the
but-
conversation, but find someone,
No, but
a
my,
teacher.
my
or-
thing is, this is the problem. We make decisions when we're young based on our understanding, and
yeah,
so
it's so true.
it is be skewed.
Yeah, you're right.
So I'm just saying, still go
Still
to
try,
them.
yeah.
And if it don't work out, then at least they are aware.
Yeah.
They could put it to somebody if they can't handle it or
Yeah.
something like that. But just as much as he brought up something that's so
Important.
important,
Yeah.
yeah, just send our message or
Yeah.
that. And like even for us, just message us. We want to hear if that's what you're
Yeah.
struggling with.
What I think could have helped, maybe if I wrote it, I don't know, wrote a letter and handed it to them, maybe that might have been easier.
Yeah, just finding a way to
Yeah.
communicate. But
Yeah. But that anger is real. Specifically, like, I had anger problems growing up
you
because
had. Ready
Wow.
MP, ready MP, boy. Somebody said the MP couldn't come because of some anger.
I thought to have other people on the set, and when I get her ease off. Wow. It's like
Wait.
that. Okay.
Oh,
All right. Okay.
Don't get angry with me now.
We're moving forward like that. So no, I had anger issues as a child growing up. And it came from a place of not being able to express how I felt because I didn't know how to.
Yeah.
And also I was actually, and to some degree I still am, a bit scared of the outcome in the sense that a lot of what I faced as a child and the trauma of losing my parents, that's messy. Let's be real. That's messy. The emotions. And it's not just the loss. It's all the other things that you go through after. That's messy. Nobody wants to face those emotions. So how I dealt with it is, we're not dealing with this. We're not dealing with it. So you
Just
keep
keep piling up.
and guess what? I didn't, explore in different in different ways. And that's something I had to confront and begin to deal with. Am I fully there yet? No, I would not go hit to nobody, no lash and tell. So I'm in a much better place.
For sure. Yeah.
But that compounding over time.
Well, I think losing a parent at any stage too, it's ongoing.
Yes.
Because especially for those of y'all who could talk about a good relationship, your story is a really, it's a little bit more complicated because I know Dani a couple of years now and her dad wasn't there when she was growing up, but they actually reconnected and started to build good. And then she lost him.
Yeah.
So like that's, but what I'm saying is I think what you're talking about is people don't want to speak about it, but it's for every occasion. It hits again. For every milestone, it hits again.
Because the absence of the person.
Correct. So
one of the days that I dreaded, like again, I lost my dad at 8. One of the days that I dreaded was my wedding day.
Yeah. Same.
Because it was a defining moment. Every father walks their daughter down the aisle. In that moment, it had been 20-something years. But in that moment, I realized this is cemented, like my dad is not coming back. It was hard to walk down the aisle. And so like, you're right. It's in those moments.
I think loss on the whole, but like for what we're speaking about here, the loss of a father that sets the tone for so much. Because look, here's where you reach to. You talking about your wedding day. That's the day where you, like your life moves away from your parents.
Yeah.
But just even the absence of him there, it defines it in such a different way. And I think that's the power of a man's role in our lives. As a father, and I know we'll reach this, but like the father figures and all of that.
Yeah.
But like what you said, Leah stacked, Kai talked about it, that anger, and for whatever the reasons, whether you can express it or whatever, I think it's a lot of, if we don't deal with it, and that's why this conversation, hopefully, these guys have endured and gone through their own journeys. But the conversation is for you all there that's still struggling to hopefully learn from the wealth of experience and knowledge here.
Yeah.
To maybe take down some of those layers.
Yeah.
Start
But
unpacking.
Kijano, what was your experience like?
Well, I had both. My dad was absent for the earlier part of my life.
Okay.
because my parents were never married, so they never lived together. So I never had that father figure growing up in the house. And he would work a lot of long hours and stuff. We'd occasionally go by him on weekends and stuff, but I've seen personally how the absence of my father shaped my older brother's life and where he is today, and how it even impacted me. But after my brother's passing and my mom's passing, everything changed. The dynamic, the relationship, everything changed between us.
They're your best friend now.
Yeah, definitely. Like, that's my number one support system. Every day, we talk, stuff like that. And a Sunday, I went after church to have lunch with him, and he asked me if I think he's a good dad. I really couldn't answer the question in the moment because my perception of him when I was younger was, I was a child, immature. I didn't understand life on that level. But as I grew older, I think he did the best he could do.
He did the best he could.
Based on, and he wasn't a spiritual man, so he go to church every Sunday, but he would read a scripture every now and then. So he had that foundation.
Let me just say this is great for people who still working through the process with their dad.
Yeah.
That's a good story there, that there's still hope.
And one of the things I would like to say here is that regardless of what the relationship is or was, show a little grace. You may not know your dad's full story. I'm not saying that to, kind of like pacify
or cover it wrongdoing or anything, right?
Or cover how you feel and the things that you've been through. But consider that. That's all I'm asking. Just consider that.
You don't know until you walk those steps.
Yeah.
And I learned that probably very much, not just as a man having children now, but I learned that even in the career part.
Yeah.
Quote unquote career. But becoming a pastor helped me to understand, like, I have so much more respect for my father right now. Because I 5 years in with Hope City and I'm ready to retire. Like, yo!
Why does get trouble or
some of them are anger issues. Yeah, hey, listen, I have grey hair for everybody.
We've always talked about passages, grey hairs.
Look,
The creators.
Listen, but just what you're saying, Ren, I think it is so easy, especially as when we in our younger ages, but young people to make judgments and assessments. And even as adults right now, what I always challenge myself to do is not draw from what I thought I knew back then. Kijana, you hit it really good.
Yeah.
Because you could look back at your dad now, even though you felt that emptiness or, his absence, you look back now and you could literally say, man, he did the best he could.
Yeah.
I'll go and add something. Our parents are human, like our fathers.
Yes.
They have, just the same way we excuse ourselves when we mess up or do wrong, they struggling with the same. Yeah. They struggling with probably harder. They had less opportunities. You spoke about that. Yeah. Like with the paycheck.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine you as a man seeing your child who you sacrifice so much for just come and go past you then? Like that. I'm not saying that that's a hard thing for everybody, but it's not easy as well.
Yeah.
Like when you look at your own identity. So I'm fully endorsing what Ren says. Like, guys, we have to be like a little more grace.
I want to say on Wiki John, I was saying too, when I was coming up, me and my father would always butt heads because I wanted to do one thing and he wanted me to go on next week. So we would constantly butt heads and be it's always bickering because he wanted something for my life. I understand what he wanted. I know it was good, but in my mind, I want to live my life. You don't live yours, Cap. Leave me alone.
Right.
Yeah. And now, watching back, if God bless me, I have children. If I have a son like me, I would hold my head and bawl. No, because I see now with the frustration he had. Yeah. You know what I mean? And
I was watching and hold my head and bawl.
Wait, boy.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody getting it.
And insane
You
so
get one. You
insane so it's only when it reached a point where he had to leave home and leave me by myself is where I become the man he wanted me to become. And he wasn't even in the picture. You know what I mean? So sometimes we just had to trust God to know that I do the best I could do. As a man I talking about, as a father.
Right.
I do the best I could do and it in God's hands now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he had to do that for you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
I have a question. Do you think that your father's role in your life, whether present or absent, has, specific to the guys, contributed to, or in what way rather, has it contributed to the man that you have turned out to be, if at all?
I would say I learned from my father how to be a better man through the things he tried to do. Whether he succeeded or not, I know he was trying to do. And I learned from him what not to do
Okay.
as a man. Because sometimes we just want the best for the people we love. But we go about it the wrong way sometimes. Sometimes we do things out of, we thinking is out of love. But I learned that having a relationship with your son, especially as a father, is very important. Because sometimes we look for that relationship outside and we get the wrong, we go to the wrong people.
You think it's only people or things?
Things too, but everything comes from home. It starts at home, I would believe. And the man in the house, whether we want to believe it or not, is the most important thing. Because that's supposed to be the leader. And within saying that, he has a lot of weight on his shoulder. I know that. I don't know what it is to be a father, but becoming a young man, I see how hard it is out there. And I just really have to applaud the fathers who are really trying.
Yeah.
Because it ain't easy. It ain't easy when you have especially when you have a son who don't want to listen.
But how did that shape you, like with your relationships though?
With my father.
Like no, but like with your dad being there, and so even the dynamics you explained.
Mm-hmm.
How has that shaped you for like the relationships around you then?
I try to most of the times put myself in people's position.
Okay.
Yeah, because sometimes you're watching it from outside and you don't know what a boy really going through. You don't know what somebody really going through when it comes to relationships.
So you learn to give more grace
Wait,
then.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Kijana, what about you? How?
My dad is a very jovial person. He liked to laugh and talk, and he would come and meet a stranger by the bus and strike up a whole conversation like if they're friends for 10 years. I guess not growing up with him, I didn't really get that, or that's not me by nature.
So you didn't really you like the total opposite of that.
Yeah. My mom was different. She was more kind of quiet, keep to herself.
Right.
So, but as I interact with him and, we go places together and, I spend more time with him, I'm beginning to understand the importance of, communicating, talking to people, and building relationships and stuff like that. So for me, this is a huge step, even in Hope City. I view the community at large different now, So I think the impact he had or didn't have on me, is be more open, be more,
Because of the relationship, how it is now.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sure.
You guys.
Yeah.
For me, well, I used to want to relate to him a lot, right? Because he was super busy with work and trying to provide and stuff. Because I had that understanding, and the way they operated or he operated was trying to hold everything in a sense as like not letting us know or letting me know what's going on, like the negatives or whatever, because he was trying to provide and stuff, And I think some of the negatives of that like passed down to me because I think that I have to do a lot of stuff on my own, lack of communication with certain things as well.
Right.
you know, because it's like, don't worry, I'll handle it, kind of talk and
Because
whatnot.
that's kind of like what you saw example.
Yeah,
before.
yeah, basically that kind of example. So, eventually, I think as like years passed by and stuff, he started to open up a little more.
Okay.
Yeah, and be a bit more real in that sense, right? And then I started to understand, it's like, yeah, okay, no problem. And then I'll communicate a bit differently, you know.
No way.
Yeah, with relationships and stuff.
Cool.
Okay.
Before I respond, I want to say a few things. One is I want to say thanks to my dad for giving me his blessing to be part of this, because I did have a brief conversation with him and I let him know what it was going to be about. I showed him so many questions, and that there'll be a discussion of, from my perspective, the good and bad, and he was okay with that. As well, I'll start off with that. That's one thing. The other thing I would say is I don't think he had a good example in the sense that my grandfather was an alcoholic, and there was a lot of crushing financial burdens on the family because of some of his decisions. Whether it be he get drunk and lost close to what could be a year worth of some people's wages at the bar, things like that. So that's that. As far as the way my dad shaped my identity, I'm not really sure what to describe that aside from. I mean, my name is the reverse of his name. And my personality is the reverse of his. Like I was saying, the way he is on the outside, I'm on the inside, which is more aggressive, direct, that kind of thing, which I try to keep under control. And I guess his main thing was not to be dependent on others financially. Get your own, and you know, he has a few sayings. He would say, can't afford to care people think how they feel because people is being real stupidness out there. I try to adapt that.
What's he saying?
You can't afford to care what people think
okay,
or how
okay.
they feel because people is being real stupidness out there,
Okay.
right? He helped them become more street smart in terms of identifying where there might be criminal activity, etc., etc. That being said, I don't really know if or how much of an effect he had on my identity. Outside of those things, I can't really see a point to anything. There was nothing deep.
Okay.
Really, it was more like on the surface.
But you know, I think even if there was nothing deep, it still does impact in a great way.
Right.
So the absence of a thing does not negate its impact.
I agree.
on
I actually want to also talk on that because, well, I lost my biological father, right? Growing up, I would not know him, but apparently I would hear stories of him.
Okay.
And certain traits I thought that were mine were actually of him as well. You know, certain behavior patterns and stuff. So people will be like, "You're just like your dad," and I'll be like, "I never knew how he was in that way." You know, so it left like a.
How has that wonder been for you?
No,
though?
it's been really interesting because growing up in Trinidad,
Just
and
now, say where your biological father was now. Like where you share, like where he was known.
he was known for a lot of stuff, man. Because when I would go in certain places, right? Let's just say that. You look like a father boy. And I have, I would say, 3 brothers that look similar to me, right? And we look, like growing up, we look very similar. So when we were at those places, people would be like, "Damn, that's crazy," and they'll shout out his name, right?
After all those years.
And we were like, "Who's?" Well, at least for me,
Yeah.
it's like, "Who's that guy?" You know, and then it's like, "No, it's that." People telling us stories about him. You know, we walk like him, we look like him. Sometimes we even talk like him. Sometimes at like growing up and stuff like that. So that was very interesting because, and then when we go back to ask about him, who we live with, no one wanted to speak on that. Right? You know?
Typical family vibes.
Right. So it was like I had to hear stories about
From outside.
growing up as
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But how has that been? Like just the wondering if like just not knowing him. Cause it's the same for me, and actually being real honest, one of the things recently I had to kind of navigate is I woke up one day and I'm like, I love my dad, but I don't know him. I cannot tell you what his favorite color is. What's his favorite show. I cannot tell you what's his favorite food. I don't know the things that he likes, the things that annoys him. I don't know these things. I love a man that I don't No.
That's interesting that you say that, because I was having a conversation with someone and they asked me, do you miss your father? Do you miss your biological dad? And I had to pause and think about it. And it's like, how could I miss somebody I didn't really know?
Yeah.
You know, I miss what I could have been, the idea of like, what if he was like present. And to be honest, that would have been a bit scary. Like if he was, but happens with, you know, and I'm real grateful for that.
Be a gun man.
You're really having fun today.
I'm just glad he said it.
No,
That's all I'm gonna
the way he
say.
talking out of guess at this point, you know.
It's fine. Like, no,
I just
yeah,
joking.
that's all good, man. That's all good. That's like my personality with, like how I came out was completely chalk and cheese for how he was, you know.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
Because it was exactly those kind of things. It's like you run stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And you say these stories like if your dad was alive, then you'd be running stuff as well, you know. But thank God for the people in my life and God, you know, because even in my household, my stepfather was Muslim, and that was also strange to even battle with that in itself.
Right.
My mom and God providing men in my life and stuff like that. So yeah, you know, God was really fighting for me, I would say,
Yeah.
when it comes to that.
Danny, how has that been like for you?
I just want to touch on the point that you talked about wonder, because that was something that I also kind of struggled with. Like before my dad and I reunited, I just always wondered about him.
Yeah.
And then when we did reunite, it was for a short moment before he passed away. But there was always that wondering there, like what he's like. And even when we did connect, I didn't get I wish if I had more time. That was one of these things that I genuinely wish if we had more time, like the little things. What was his favorite color? Or
Yeah.
what, you know, just getting to know him a bit more.
Yeah.
You know, and when he passed away, Shaq was also mentioning, like, somebody asked you, do you miss your dad? And that was just kind of like, it's the same thing. Like when he passed away, it shocked me, yes, and I cried. And this to sound,
It's okay.
you know, but I cried and I grieved the fact that I was officially an orphan, because I lost my mom, but
Yeah.
I knew that he was alive. Like I knew that
Yeah.
he was somewhere.
Yeah.
We just didn't reunite.
You still had a
as yet. I
parent.
had hope.
Yeah.
So when we reunited, I was like, yeah, you know, I have a parent, you know. And then when he passed away, I think I grieved the fact that, okay, I was alone in this world.
Yeah.
I officially didn't have parents. So that definitely shaped my outlook on things. Even from time to time, you know, you struggle. My struggle is like you don't really have that. I would look at people who have their fathers and people who just have their parents, and I'm like, they have that safety net. They have like that people to fall back on as parents, and I didn't have that, you know. And that just kind of shaped how I interacted. I always thought, you know, I have to do it on my own. There was this point in my life where I thought I had to do things on my own. I had to get things because I just didn't have a father to rely on anymore. So that shaped a lot.
I mean, you
Yeah.
said a real interesting with their safety, and I think that's one of the things that I missed not having a dad. That protection, and that did impact me as a woman.
Yeah.
When my dad died, obviously, like, there was just my mom. There was no male figure.
Yeah.
And so me being the oldest, in a lot of ways, I had to assume roles that I was too young for.
Yeah.
I had to step up. I can remember there was one time in particular, somebody broke into our house. And I was about 10 or 12 years, but let me tell you something, eh?
You
Nobody
was
could
ready to
tell me
fight.
I was no small fries. I was ready to fight. I remember we had no idea what laughing.
We know where the anger starts.
Unleash.
You understand?
Morph.
Already. I can't do nothing, but already. I remember we had to walk back out the road because we weren't sure, like, if anybody was, like, still in the house. My mom literally, because we met our door open. Let me tell you all something. If anybody ever experienced a break-in, it is the most You
Unsettling.
feel so
Unsettling.
like
Vulnerable.
violated. Like this is your safe space.
Yeah.
It took a while to feel comfortable in your own house after.
Yeah.
But I remember that day, and my mom was like, we have to head back out the road to like look for one of the guys to come and actually check in the house properly to make sure there's nobody hiding anywhere. I was like, all right, cool. Well, I pick up a knife. What? I had on a long sleeve. I pick up a knife and I hid the knife in my sleeves.
Just
I was like,
ready
this
to
is
Where
not
you learn
it.
that from? Where you learn?
Ninja.
So, and that's the funny thing. I learned it from nowhere.
Instinct.
Yeah.
Instinct.
But
You have to defend yourself.
I had to defend myself, and
protect
if
yourself.
anybody was coming around my people, well, I don't know what happened, but I was ready to defend. And so so I'm saying all that to say that the lack of a dad, the absence of that protection, as a woman, made me assume that role. But can I tell you all, when you're married, there's some things you have to unlearn.
Yeah.
And there's some things I'd like, into teens and stuff like that. I spent a good few years, more than 10 years, being single, navigating through what, the absence of my dad looked like. And yes, there were things that I dealt with. But when I got married, I had to deal with some things. Understanding submission was a huge thing for me because I was the man in my house. So to speak.
Yeah.
I really had to check on MP when I saw this podcast.
Why you want to check on the MP?
No, I just missing him. I just want to make sure he's okay. I just want to make sure he's
I
okay.
tried to figure out his relevance in the conversation.
I just want to check on the MP.
You should do that.
Yeah. I can
You want to call a friend?
This is my lifeline or his lifeline.
But yeah, ladies.
I just wanted to build a bit on what Kyron said. When he was answering your question, he said, how did my father shape us? And you say you're not so sure. Yeah. But in every contribution that you have made this evening, you did say how your dad impacted you. Yeah. It was evidence, some of it, much of it you're still carrying, And I know that in your time and, you're in a great community that you would release that and have that conversation. It's not too late to write it out and give it to him, and release some of that. But I would say from my own perspective, so it wasn't all peaches and creams. Yeah, I have an excellent father and an excellent mother. And I was walking out today, out of the gate, and I was saying, wow, I have a lot of support, right? But there was that moment when my father and my mother split, right? Great man as he was, is my father. They conceived me, of course, out of wedlock. My grandfather was very senior in the church. So there was one option. You will marry my granddaughter and you will live here.
Yeah.
And I don't think that my father was yet ready for that. And in his best, with the capacities that he had, because my grandparents also were divorced. So he had that story to carry. And then he and my mother got together and conceived me, their blessing. But then when they got married, that marriage ended in divorce. I would say maybe Form 6, thereabout. And for the first time, my father was no longer in the home. Yeah. And it was also, I won't go down the road because I still have a life to live after this. So I can't go too unfiltered, but it was also the first time that, I had a boyfriend, per se. Now, that's public knowledge. I know my father's going to look at this and start to do a timeline. And I remember that person telling me...
Discipline, eh?
Yeah, I remember that person telling me, because he as well, his parents split, and he said, well, you're not going to develop his daddy issues, right? So you have to know this and remember that. But what was so profound is that my father, I remember he was dropping me off at camp that same year when that split happened. And he said, he tried to have a conversation with me, like, how are you going? I was like, that's you and my mother business. That's fine. It's good. Okay, goodbye. And I jump out the car. I was like, we're not having this conversation. But as you talk about marriage, I want to get to that point. What that said to me and what I wanted to say to you is that while our parents, they did their best with the capacities that they had and everything else at least in my life, was a lesson. Because I knew that there were things when I look at my parents' relationship and my father as a man, there were certain things that I had to do to work on. And when you say you're masculine, I was queen masculine, right? King masculine, queen. Let's say it like that.
Yeah, we understand.
There were things that I had to work on before I could get married.
Yeah.
Because I learned from my parents' mistakes.
Yeah.
They had to get married when they were young because my grandfather was in church. You shall not embarrass my house, you know?
Yeah.
So they had to get married. And for me, it helped me look for a good partner, a partner that's grounded in faith, but more importantly, I can't say that I got a partner that's similar to my father because my husband isn't good with his hands, but he's quite intellectually, sound and funny and supportive and strong and all of those things. But in my father, there was always a key thing of support.
Yeah.
And in my partner, there's always that key tenet of support. And I would say what my parents' relationship, and I'm speaking to anybody out there who's going through, who have parents in the home and then you're going through a situation where your parents have divorced, that is not your fault. That's the one thing that my partner at the time said to me. It's like, it's not your fault. That's the first and foremost thing. But don't let that, and I'm happy that it didn't happen to me, create a void in your life and then go searching for that void in other people's things and places.
Right.
Yes.
Take the lesson from it, and that lesson is a valuable lesson. And that's why it took so long to get married. I wanted to ensure that this was the person that God prepared for me, that I wasn't rushing into things because of convenience or consequence or anything like that. But more importantly, learning from my parents, give yourself time. Yeah. So you do find, and I just want to say this as I end, a lot of young women suffer a really terrible consequence when their father isn't there.
Yep.
They look for that love in men. And they end up in some really difficult relationship and it go down a road that it's not supposed to be.
And sometimes it's unrealistic expectations.
Correct. Because you don't know what you're searching for. You're just searching for the presence of a man.
What you're supposed to get from a father, you wouldn't get from a spouse.
Correct. And I just want to tell people that what I was really happy about was that, and my great grandmother, since I was a child, we grew up in church. So I always knew the love of God. And that is what, when I had questions, that is what I sort of bear into read Proverbs over and over and over. Really, I was like looking for answers. I didn't have ChatGPT then to look for answers, but I was looking for the answers of how do I cope with this. And that's what became my strength and really drew me closer to God in that time.
Yeah. I think...
Sorry, I was gonna get a reverse that without fathers, for males, they lack the knowledge to love as well. Women, in that regard or whatever the case is, to have that discipline, I would say, just to
that's
give
deep,
up the contrast.
Yeah.
That's really deep, and that's so true because we tend to look at young men today and ask the question, and I don't want to go too far in this, but we have prioritized in policy young girls and not focus equally on young men. And I think that's a real
Which
big
is a problem.
I don't want to take the conversation left.
You say for young men on the whole.
Right. But what that does is a lot of young men, they're socialized and they say, don't cry. Don't do this, don't that. Many of them, if their father wasn't present, then are groomed by their mothers, women, and they say, don't cry, be strong, do this. And society tell them all these things. And then they grow up and you want them to be a nurturing father. You want them to open, you want them to be vulnerable.
I hold out the front view.
Even said with fathers, I do think that
I hold out the front view.
What you saying is, don't cry, but
no, I'm not saying don't cry.
No. You're saying that is what
they would have been told.
Even said for fathers in the home, that is how they grow.
That's
how they grow.
That's why I disagree.
Yeah, that is how they grow. Whether it be young men or old men.
Let me just say it this way: you say when they're raised by women, they might have been taught certain things like that. It has actually made them weaker.
Yeah.
So what we have right now in our culture is the absence of strong men.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
You have sensitive men, who more in their emotions because they've been raised by women.
Yeah.
So what we lacking? So I agree with what Shaq is saying, and what you agreed with. But the way that we love, men love by being strong,
Yeah.
by going through the fires and saying, I am still here.
Yeah.
I ain't giving up. Because our mother's love it is different.
Correct.
So I'm saying, like,
I know that, totally.
you know what I'm
So
saying?
we're
Like,
expecting men to be men, but men to have feminine traits.
Yeah, that was the problem.
that's the problem. Because and I'll piggyback on what you said, is because everything is so focused on the young woman or the
Correct.
woman. So now they're trying to use solutions for women that men have to adapt.
No. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, yes, the absence of a father, a young man doesn't understand the roles of being a man and manhood on the whole. But how he loves supposed to look different.
Yeah.
He's supposed to get up and sacrifice. He's supposed to take a lot of burdens.
Yeah.
He has to be strong.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying that he has to do it alone. That's the problem, I
Yeah.
think, where the generations in the past probably missed it.
Yeah.
We can't throw out because, like, we see the brokenness in the generation of the men before.
Yeah.
Like, we see some of the things that cause them to be unhealthy, because we have to call it what it is, you know.
Yeah.
Some of the traits, it was toxic, it wasn't good. But we can't throw the good in it. You talk about how much your father sacrificed for you. We need more men willing to sacrifice.
Yeah.
Like,
And do the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to raising young men. I feel the lack of fathers there, but they need to step up still with how they raise young men, especially in this time
Yeah.
where it's so
Yes.
easy to be misled
Yeah.
for a young man. When most young people, I feel, looking for that community.
They're looking for community.
that
Belonging.
that sense of safety.
that's why the gangs rampant.
That is
right
why.
now.
That is why.
They giving them a family.
Exactly.
They
Exactly.
giving them a family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're giving them that and they're feeling like they belong somewhere.
Yeah.
And that is a dangerous place.
But
It
here's
is.
the thing: you think it's easy to be in the gangs? You had to be strong.
Definitely, but being in the gangs is where you feel a sense of safety, I would say. And
No.
yeah, and a sense
That's
of
the
se-
part that
yeah,
they were talking about that they lost.
It's hard, but
The
I willing
validation.
to go with these guys because these guys making me feel like I something. You know what I mean? These guys making me feel like a man.
The validation, the
Yeah.
identity.
Yeah.
I feeling like I is a match, and this is why we losing all these men.
And it's an
Because-
environment so that you're free to be a man.
Yeah, you're free.
Yeah.
Nobody in that environment. I talking from experience. It's like nobody can touch me because I hear. We hear, bro.
Yeah.
And you don't get that home. You don't get that amongst the peers you have. So when you find yourself and you feel that kind of love,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
It's a different
It's,
look
a
in love.
it's
That
it's
is
like
a
loyalty. Men cherish loyalty.
We want honor and
Yeah,
respect more than
men,
love.
exactly, over everything.
That's it.
Yeah,
Men
definitely.
prefer- Women love and security.
Yeah.
Men look for respect
and
honor.
loyalty. That is it. And when you get that, you just feel like, all right, this is why what? Because you ain't getting this nowhere else, and I never feel this nowhere else.
Sorry,
you know what I mean?
we take it a little.
I think just what's kind of being echoed here, and we're talking specifically of like fathers and that role they play in terms of making men,
Correct.
but they also play a huge role in terms of making women. When again, and I shared when my father wasn't there, I had to assume certain responsibilities, or I felt like I had to, what we call it, alpha woman.
Yeah.
that's the trending way they
Rubbish
say it,
talk
right?
now.
Exactly, rubbish talk.
Yeah.
No, but it makes a woman assume those types of traits.
Yeah.
And so it's very important in terms of like the role of a
The
dad
role of a
and
father in
Yeah.
the household for both,
for both men and women. For both
to
men and
develop
women.
such.
Yeah, I
because
think
the woman would see the father as an example of what she would like to.
of course. And
Yeah.
so when a woman does
or
not,
what she
when
would-
just like how it triggers men or frees men to assume those manly traits, it does the same for a woman.
Correct.
Not manly traits, feminine ones. Relax on yourself. But
Something's so angry now.
I'm not angry. All right.
that's true.
I'll try to smile when I'm talking. I'll help.
I don't know, maybe like the viewers.
But I mean, it has been, I mean, we're winding down things here, and we heard a lot about, just the issues and stuff like that. And thank you guys so much for being, open. Like, I love
Sharing
this.
yeah.
I know it takes strength, boldness, courage to do this. And I do know that people would be blessed by this conversation. And for Tioka, you had such a great story. Even Kai, like, just certain things. Kijana as well. You too, like,
Kijana
you all
was
have
fab,
good stories in terms of like relationships with your dad. And I hope that encourages even fathers that may be looking on. Be encouraged. Like, your role is not just for your son or daughter, but it plays such a huge
part in your legacy.
part in not just your legacy, but in society.
Yeah.
When you make good sons and good daughters, we can have
Yeah,
good societies,
don't give
right?
up on your children. I know sometimes it is seem like, whoa.
Especially when you have a son like Dwayne.
Yeah.
According to him, that's what he said.
I had to take that one because don't give up parents. Trust me. Don't, because you never know what you're putting in the work. I know sometimes you might just want to throw out with them children, but don't give up on your children.
That is something to really talk about because there's a period of time where my stepdad was like, not anymore now. That was it. I didn't really receive that properly because I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know what I meant. But my mom was like, yeah, he done. So yeah, definitely don't give up and be persistent and continue.
Yeah.
Right.
Be encouraged, and specifically for those people that this day is a dreaded one. Like, you probably don't have a good relationship with your dad, maybe lost your dad, just don't have that connection. Some people may be probably never had a relationship, don't know who their dads are. Be encouraged. There's a scripture, and it says, and Kai and I were speaking about this earlier on today, that God is a father to the fatherless. And I think it is absolutely beautiful that God would take time out of his day to say something like that to us.
I just want to add to that. So God is that fatherly figure. The problem is when you don't know your dad, it's hard to relate to God that way. So what I would say is pray that God would place earthly men who can be that fatherly figure so that it will help build our faith to lean on that scripture. Because for both of y'all, you're going to always wrestle to some degree of what you don't know, but you can't get to know a God who is a good father. Yeah.
And
that
it's not
has definitely been a part of like my testimony, as you said.
Because
It's been
you ain't no orphan, eh?
no.
She said she was. She said she was.
She said she was. Okay.
So that's why they jump in now.
but that has definitely been, as you said, sometimes it's hard to see God as that father, especially
You don't have that earthly example.
You didn't have that earthly example, but thank God for placing men like yourself as a father figure in my life.
Oh, guys, just throw up a
For me
heart.
to have that
Don't
example.
Yo, stop it.
And it is a journey. So that I just want to encourage persons as well that it is a journey, but God ultimately is our father.
Yes. And he's the best father that you can have. Literally.
Even when you get licks.
Even when you get licks. Yeah, he just gave licks.
What? And he licks direct.
Especially when you know better.
He licks is not painful.
Especially when you know better.
From up here.
I rather take that licks. Cap. I rather take that one.
Guys, thank you so very much to our viewers. Thanks for joining us. It has been a pleasure. As always, you can stay connected with us via socials. That's on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Hope Unfiltered. Pastor J, was a good one.
What's that?
It was a good one.
It was a great one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
See y'all.